Yes.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining. Happy Monday. This is great. This is our first Vancouver Fabric and Power BI user group. Thanks, Michael, for our inaugural uh, meetup, and Sandeep joined my hand. Thanks, Sandeep, for joining. It's awesome. Good team. And thanks everyone for joining us. Today we are going to talk about, we have like amazing Michael with us. So it's going to be direct link migration and semantic link labs. So just to let you guys know, I did attended his PGI. It was awesome. So looking forward to some cool stuff today. And thanks, Michael, once again. Before we start, just a few things about myself, and let Sandeep introduce himself. My name is Pravinder Chana. I'm in Vancouver. Actually, I wanted this meetup to get started. Was trying it for so long, but eventually I was looking for right partner, and then I requested Sandeep. He joined, which is awesome. And finally, we are here starting today. Again, just about me, I mainly work on Power BI and now Fabric, and pretty much doing everything Power BI related stuff. So that's what I am. Sandeep?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandeep. I'm a senior Power BI architect at Hitachi Solutions. So Hitachi Solutions is a Microsoft Gold partner. We do anything and everything that touches a Microsoft data stack. I specifically work on Power BI and Fabric, right, at fabric.guru. And I'm heavily active on Twitter. So if you are not on Twitter and if you're a Power BI user, you're missing out. Follow me there on Twitter. And what else? I'm not from Vancouver, actually. I'm from Portland. So we are in the same time zone. I moved from Chicago to Portland, Oregon, about 6 months ago. I've known Per for many years, and he said, "Well, we should start a user group." I said, "Okay, yeah, absolutely. Let's do that." He and I, we share passions with for data analytics, Power BI, Fabric, and everything that's related to that. So, and more importantly, I've presented over the years at many user groups. And for me personally, part of the user group is learning, but also being able to connect with other fellow developers and others in the community. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to another venue to connect with others. Not everybody can make it to all the conferences and stuff, and I can't personally go attend all the other amazing user groups as well. We have many from other people from other user groups here. So thank you all for joining us here, and thank you for supporting. We're really excited to have you here. Slide, please, Per.
Awesome. All right. Just, yeah, maybe Sandeep, you want to introduce Michael? You know
Yeah.
Michael, you yourself, whatever.
Yep. Yeah, well, Michael will introduce himself, but let me do the honors of introducing Michael. So, Michael is Principal PM on the Fabric Cat team. If this is your first time about knowing who Michael is, you are probably wrong because one way or other, you must have used the things that Michael has developed over the years. I personally have benefited tremendously from all the amazing stuff that he has provided to the community. He writes blogs at elegantbi.com. But I guess he's most well known for a best practice analyzer, which I use every single day, and I'm sure the rest of you who are Power BI users and who do enterprise Power BI development have relied on the tools that he has developed. So Power BI Best Practice Analyzer, Report Analyzer, all the C# scripts that are in his GitHub repo, automation and optimization, and obviously now semantic link labs. So just to give you an idea, so last week there was a question on Reddit, and somebody asked, can you refresh when you are doing development in desktop, can you selectively refresh some of the partitions or some of the tables? And obviously in desktop, you can right click and do that, but they wanted to make that process a bit automated with Tabular Editor. And Alex replied, Alex Powers, the great Alex Powers replied that he is the lord of the links. But he said he doesn't know that's probably not the case. I was like, wait, hold on a second. Just go to Michael's repo. He has a blog on that, and you can read about it and use the script. So if you have not visited his website, there are a ton of resources, ton of amazing stuff in there. So definitely go ahead and give it a look. And I'm sure you will learn a lot from him, as I have done. I have never personally thanked Michael for making me look very smart in front of all the consultants or in front of all my clients as a consultant. So thank you, Michael, for doing that. So yeah, and Michael, over to you. I'll allow you to introduce yourself and we can get into the presentation.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much, Sandeep and Parv. Great to meet you. And we've worked quite a bit together, but it's actually the first time that we're here talking live. So, and I will say, like, a benefit of the community is that we've learned a lot from each other. I appreciate your kind words, and I must say I've learned a ton from you and from many folks in this call and folks throughout the Power BI and Fabric communities. So I'm glad to keep that going. So let's yeah, just a quick intro about myself. I work on the Fabric CAT team and primarily advise customers on their modeling, semantic modeling, DAX, optimization, all that kind of good stuff. But I just like building stuff and hopefully building stuff that's useful for the Power BI and Fabric communities. So that's led me to develop solutions around the best practice analyzer, the report analyzer, and a lot of automation scripts, and most recently working with the semantic link team and creating semantic link labs. So that leads us to the topic for today.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Just before you start your demo, I just have a couple of things I want to talk about. So we will record this before this questions come. Like we will record it and share the link on the meetup, and where you can go and check. Of course, please keep yourself muted during the presentation. And if you have any question, put it in the chat with Q as in caps so that prefix it. We know what the question is. Michael has so much to show, so he wants it to be tried to take the questions at the end. And we will moderate in between. If we find anything we can answer, we will surely do that. And last but not least, we will have a very brief survey at the end of this, like it's going to be less than a minute. And Sandeep did something on the Fabric notebook to draw the names from that particular form feedback, and we will have a referral draw. So that's the one thing you want to stay till the end and do fill up that feedback form. Thank you very much. And to you, Michael, I'm going to stop sharing, so it's all yours.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Just let me know you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay, so let's get started. Today, we will be talking first an introduction of semantic link labs and what it is and what it can be used for. Then we will jump into talking about direct lake and specifically about direct lake migration, as well as an automation script for checking direct lake guardrails, which we'll get into more. Then we will talk about how you can run the best practice analyzer inside of semantic link labs, as well as Vertipaq analyzer. And you can automatically translate your entire semantic model in one click. And finally, we will show a sneak peek of some upcoming features for semantic link labs. Hopefully we have time at the end. And so with that, let's get into it. So semantic link labs is an open sourced Python library that's on Microsoft's GitHub. It was previously known as Fabric Cat Tools, which was launched, I think, beginning of March. And in the middle of June, it was launched as semantic-link-labs. So as the name implies, it is an extension of semantic link. And it has, I counted just recently, it has now 190 additional functions on top of semantic link. I think semantic link has maybe like 50 or 60 functions. So there's a ton of additional capabilities here. Semantic link itself is awesome, but it's, I guess, even more awesome if you use these two together. And just to make it clear, like everything in semantic-link-labs is additional. It's nothing, there's no like, oh, I use semantic-link-labs, I don't have to use semantic-link. You use both of them together because it's additional functionality, not trying to reinvent the wheel here. So with that additional functionality, you have full access to the tabular object model, or TOM. So you can programmatically make any type of change to a semantic model very easily. And there's literally 100 functions built in specifically for modifying the tabular object model or semantic models programmatically, which make these modifications much, much easier. With semantic link and semantic link labs, you have auto authentication. So when you are working with it and working with the functions inside of a Fabric notebook, you don't have to worry about authentication. It's taken care of for you. This is a big thing because usually, you may be working with Power BI or Fabric APIs, and you have to build a C# application and worry about authentication, and that's kind of a pain. With semantic link and semantic link labs, it's all taken care of for you. So you just use it, and you don't have to worry about creating some kind of a service principal or authentication. It's just taken care of automatically. And really, with semantic link labs, you have really endless opportunities for automation, whether you're working with the lakehouse, whether you're working with reports, whether you're working with semantic model, whether you're working with capacities or workspaces or data flows. This affects all of that stuff. As you'll see, Fabric notebooks are the glue which connect all these assets together in the Fabric ecosystem. And semantic link and semantic link labs just make it much more accessible. You have easy access to really all of the Power BI and Fabric APIs. And the last point, you don't need to be a Python expert to use it. In fact, I didn't really even know much about Python a year ago. I've acclimated pretty quickly to it. And I think a lot of others can. If you're before you were using, start using maybe C# with Tabular Editor in Power BI, this should be pretty easy for you. But otherwise, like if you're not taking advantage of these things and you're working with semantic models or reports or lakehouses, or you're a Power BI admin, you're really missing out. And it's a huge opportunity for you. So with that, let's get into it. And we'll start with talking about direct lake migration. But before that, let's just give a very brief intro for direct lake. So you're probably familiar with, in semantic models, you have import mode and direct query mode. Import mode is the most common. It has the advantage of being very fast with the vertipack compression, but it also is latent in that you have to wait for data to finish processing. Direct query mode, you have data in near real time, so you don't have the latency, but it's generally slower than import mode. So each of these two modes has advantages and disadvantages. So direct lake is meant to be essentially the best of both worlds, where you have the speed of import mode and the lack of latency, the near real time of direct query. So before we get into the migration, let's talk about what are main scenarios where you would want to use direct lake mode, because it doesn't apply to all scenarios. For example, if you have an import mode model that is small and working for you just fine, there's no real advantage to moving to direct lake. But there are specific cases where direct lake could have a big impact on your modeling. So first, if you have a large semantic model that's in import mode, and you're running into memory issues, and you're even thinking of using DirectQuery because you have a model that's too large to fit into memory, Direct Lake mode is a great option for you because only the objects which are actually used by user queries go into the memory in the model. And so you can actually have a very large model in memory while maybe only part of that model is being used. And it can actually work quite well. Additionally, if you have a large import mode semantic model, which is taking a long time to process, and you want to shrink that down, you can use Direct Lake mode because you won't have to worry about data processing anymore as far as in the model itself, and you can save that time and maintain the good performance that import mode has with Direct Lake mode. Additionally, if you're using maybe DirectQuery mode because you don't want to have any latency, you can use Direct Lake mode because it has near real-time experience without having to process the data, and you get the performance boost of the kind of import mode side of Direct Lake. So those are the three primary scenarios where you'd want to use Direct Lake. Now, if you fall into one of those scenarios, you have a problem because generally speaking, migrating a solution to Direct Lake is not particularly easy. Generally speaking, you will have to create it manually, step by step, and recreate that whole model, which is a lot of work. And we want to avoid that. And why is that? It's because several primary features of semantic modeling are not supported. And those are calculated tables, calculated columns, tables with multiple partitions, and Power Query logic. And if you have a semantic model, you probably have at least one of these four, if not all of them. And another requirement for Direct Lake is that all the tables in the semantic model must come from a single lakehouse. So looking at these problems, like it looks like kind of hard to solve. So let's get into the solution. So the solution is a mostly automated migration process via semantic-link-labs, all taking place inside of a Fabric notebook. You'll use in this notebook, there's a set of functions which are all using semantic-link-labs, which will migrate your model from import or DirectQuery to Direct Lake. And just to be clear here, the goal is to migrate as much as feasible. As you saw in the previous slide, there are some things which are not supported, so migrating those is quite challenging. So the goal here is just to get you as far along the way with automation so that the manual work that you may have to do or may not have to do is minimized. Now, before we get into the demo, let's go over some technical details. So Power Query, as I mentioned, is not supported in Direct Lake. So the question is, how are we going to get that into a Direct Lake semantic model? And if you look at the Fabric ecosystem, the natural place for Power Query logic is Dataflow's Gen 2. Dataflow's Gen 2 is essentially Power Query online. So wouldn't it be nice to get it there? And then as well, Dataflow's Gen 2 out of it creates delta tables in a lakehouse, which, as we discussed in the previous slide, are required for Direct Lake model. So if we can get that logic there, we'll be well on our way to creating a Direct Lake semantic model. And that's actually what happens. So once that's done, the new semantic model is actually dynamically generated using the same properties that the import mode semantic model has, only leveraging the newly created delta tables in the Fabric Lakehouse that were created by Dataflow's Gen 2. And now you're wondering, well, okay, but what about the reports? I have all these reports which are using the import or DirectQuery semantic model, and I have to recreate all those reports to then use the new Direct Lake semantic model. Well, no, that's taken care of for you as well. Those in a simple function are automatically rebinded to the new direct semantic model, and there will be no, there's no need to recreate those reports. So field parameters are actually very simple calculated tables, simple enough that they can be migrated as is to Direct Lake. I mentioned calculated tables are not supported, but simple ones are, and so field parameters are migrated through this process. Only if they contain a calculated column, then that particular element is removed so that the field parameter will actually function properly with no errors. And believe it or not, calculated tables actually are migrated, but they're migrated as data tables through a sort of creative solution. So just to articulate this quickly, calculated tables run on DAX. And so that DAX is extracted from the calculated table, and it's run dynamically through semantic link to then populate a new delta table in your Fabric Lakehouse. Then that new delta table is used to populate a new regular data table in the direct semantic model. So you have the table migrated, it's just migrated as a data table. And if you're wondering what happens to the DAX that was used to create the calculated table, it's actually also migrated, but since there's no place to put it, since there's no calculated table anymore, it's specified as an annotation on the model, which can then be referenced through another function to actually keep that previously calculated table, now data table, refreshed in your direct lake semantic model. And now let's get into the demo. So here I have a Fabric workspace and I have several artifacts. Let's go through them. First, I have a data set or semantic model called migration test. And let's open up in Tabular Editor so we can see that this is not just a simple data set. It's simple in that it's not much data, but it actually has quite a few features in it. It has translations, it has perspectives, it has a calculated table, calculation group, a field parameter, even has roles and RLS. So quite a few things which could go wrong if not handled properly. So this is the model we're going to be using to import mode. We also have a report that leverages that import mode semantic model, just a simple report for demo purposes. We also have a Fabric Lakehouse. In this case, it's an empty Fabric Lakehouse, which has no tables or files. I have also downloaded this Migration to Direct Lake notebook. And this is maybe Sandeep or Parv. You can pop in the link to the semantic-link-labs. You can see that this notebook is available online for you to use. So here we're just going to connect the session and install semantic-link-labs. And you see all the steps here are laid out for you. So first what we're going to do is we're going to enter the dataset name and new dataset name. The model we want to migrate is called migration test, and the new direct semantic model will be called migration test 2. And again, there's no code you have to write, intimidated by the code. You just entering a few parameters and just running. So running these cells. So after we set these initial parameters, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a Power Query template file. And so for those of you who are not familiar, a Power Query template file is a file that that contains all the Power Query logic of a given semantic model. And so what we're doing here is we're actually creating that file dynamically. Just in a few seconds, that file will be created dynamically and saved to your to the lakehouse attached to the notebook as this Power Query template.pqt. So currently, this Power Query template file can only be really created from Excel or Dataflows Gen 2. And those are not particularly useful for us as we're trying to get the data to Dataflows Gen 2, not from it. So this function will do that for us and create that file so we can load it into Dataflow's Gen 2. We just need to go to our OneLake file explorer and sync from OneLake. And once we do that, we'll see that the file has appeared there as well. And now a really important step is to read what it says here in this notebook, and that because the next step is to use that PowerQuery template file and load it into Dataflow's Gen 2. And there are several ways to do that. You can go to your workspace, you can go to your lakehouse, you can go to your a warehouse. You need to go to the lakehouse. If you go to the lakehouse and open Dataflow's Gen 2 from there, it'll automatically point as a destination all those tables to that lakehouse. If you do it from the workspace, you have to point them all manually. So he went to the lakehouse, new Dataflow's Gen 2, and we're going to click on import from a PowerQuery template and navigate to that particular workspace, going to the files, and selecting the PowerQuery template file that we had just created dynamically. As you can see, immediately all the tables populate on the left-hand side, and all we need to do is to configure the connection, because obviously the credentials are not taken with you in the PowerQuery template file. Once we do that, we can look down on the bottom right-hand side, and we'll see the data destination is automatically pre-configured to the lakehouse, as I said, because we created Dataflow's Gen 2 from the lakehouse. And then we just click publish. And now, just like that, we've taken the PowerQuery logic out of the semantic model, and we put it inside Dataflow's Gen 2. And we are going to be now publishing Dataflows to the workspace, which when it'll run, it'll create new delta tables for all those tables which were in our previous semantic model. So that's finished. Come up to our lakehouse, refresh the tables, and bam, we have those 5 tables as delta tables in our Fabric lakehouse. And we can come over to our notebook and refresh the tables there as well, and we see them as well. And so now we have the bones for creating our direct lake semantic model. The next step is kind of the meat of this, where we're going to run this large cell here, which calls a number of functions. And this step does a lot of things. So it's essentially dynamically generating the new direct lake semantic model based on these delta tables in the lakehouse, as well as all the properties and settings that were in the import or DirectQuery semantic model. As I said, that import mode semantic model had a calculated table. That calculated table is being, the DAX is being dynamically run to create a delta table in this Fabric lakehouse, which we'll see. It's named colors, and you can see the notes here popping up that actually it just was created, and it'll create the new table in the direct lake semantic model referencing that delta table. It adds all the table properties, column properties, measures, relationships, hierarchies, translations, perspectives, roles, RLS. All those things are added automatically. And now it's finished. We can refresh the lakehouse tables. We see the new table colors, which was the calculated table. It's now been created as a delta table in the lakehouse. And let's go and see what we've done. So you see now we have migration test 2. This is the new direct lake semantic model, which was just created. And we can open the data model just as we could if we had created it manually. And let's just click here and see what we've created. So here we have the field parameter, and you probably didn't see this, but the field parameter, there were actually 3 objects in it before. Now there's 2. The reason there's 2 is because one object was a calculated column, and calculated columns are not supported in Direct Lake. And as you see here, this new semantic model is in direct lake mode. Okay, so now let's check the report. We see that the report is still tied to the migration tests semantic model. So let's fix that. But before we do that, let's run this next step to do a validation. This will check and see of all the objects in the original semantic model, which ones have made it to the direct lake semantic model. As you can see, there's one here that shows as false. It's 95% migrated, which is not 100%, but pretty darn good. As you can see, we have a calculate column which wasn't migrated because calculate columns are not supported in direct lake mode. And from this, we can easily go back to the import mode model, see that logic, and find a way using Spark or Dataflow's Gen 2 to create that that calculated column in that logic, and then migrate that over to the direct lake semantic model. But this gives us an easy way to find out what migrated, what didn't migrate, and to gather a plan to get it from 95% to 100%. And now, as I mentioned, there's one function which will rebind all the reports to the new direct lake semantic model. And by all the reports, I mean all the reports that use the import mode semantic model. And as you can see, that's been updated. Now it uses migration test 2. And we can go to the report. And we can refresh it. And we see that the report is working just as it was before, only now it's using direct lake mode through the direct lake semantic model. And I'll pause here just because this completes the talk about direct lake migration. So I'll pause here if there are questions about this topic.
Yes, thank you, Michael. So I have been curating the questions here, so I'll start from the beginning. So first question is from Bernard. That features in semantic-link-labs will eventually be included in regular semantic-link library, or will they stay side by side?
Yeah, so the goal is for them to be migrated to, talking about migrations here, to semantic link. The semantic link labs just offers these things to be made available to you earlier. I'm not sure if all the things will be moved to semantic link, and I'm not sure how long that will take. But both of these will be here for you for the future. And just we'll take it step by step as things are migrated to direct link, to semantic link. I just saw yesterday that semantic link 0.7.7 was released, and just a few things that are in semantic link labs are now available in semantic link. So there's a lot here in semantic link labs, so it's not going to be easy to migrate all of it like overnight. So it'll take some time, but eventually that should be the home for it.
Okay. And one question that I had, is there a hard dependency on any one specific version of semantic link that you have for semantic link labs?
Well, semantic link labs automatically currently installs 0.7.6, so you don't really have to worry about that. I think you need at least 0.7.5, but it's taken care of automatically.
Is the default.
So it's taken care of for you automatically. Semantic link labs installs semantic link, at least a certain version of it. But I mean, semantic link is installed by default in the Fabric runtime, so it's not really a problem. But yeah, and it installs a few other libraries as well to make to allow other capabilities as well. But
Okay.
you don't have to worry about it because it's done automatically behind the scenes.
Okay. Next question is from Choi. His question is, can you access the activity log using this library?
The activity log.
So I think that is part of like the scanner API. I don't know if you directly have a function to get the scanner API logs.
Yeah, so the admin APIs, the security API is an admin API, and those have not yet been added to Semantic Link or semantic-link-labs.
Okay.
That's in the plan. I've actually written functions for several of the admin APIs, not the scanner API.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't see why that should be a problem. So
yeah,
but it's not available yet.
Okay. This question has come up a couple of times here. Can you use the user-defined aggregations in DirectQuery? And if you
DirectLink,
have that
no,
defined, yeah.
no,
Okay.
no. That in fact, when you do this migration process, that is never added back, or it's not migrated because it's not supported.
Okay. Yeah.
Not yet. Yeah.
The question from
user-defined or auto aggregations, they're both not supported.
Okay. A question from Stephanie. So when rebinding a report to the new DirectLink model, does the report GUID and URL still change? If so, is there any way around that? I've had end users become very sad when that happened because all of their personalized bookmarks go away in that case.
I don't think that the report ID changes. I haven't actually checked to see that, but I don't see why it would.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Yeah.
I have to just double check. I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Question from Diego. How do you have a calculated table in the model, the my param? Do you have a table called my param?
That's a field
I'm not
parameter.
sure. Okay, got it. Question from Hemant. Does PQT support all the logic and functions of Power Query?
Do you mean data flows Gen 2?
Yeah, in the data flow, yeah.
Alex Powers here? No, I'm not a Power Query expert or data flows Gen 2 expert, so I'm not going to give an like absolute yes, it does.
Yeah.
For the migrations that I've done, and I've put in quite a few things, like it's worked quite well, and I haven't seen any issues in transfer logic from Power Query through a PQT file to data flows Gen 2. But I'm not going to say it's 100%. If you encounter any issues, let us know. File a support ticket. But as I said, it's not really my expertise. So.
Yeah. So Hemant, if you know any specific Power Query functions or anything that are not supported in PQT, curious to know.
Okay, I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause on the questions now. Let's continue through the content, and then we'll get to the questions at the end. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Okay. So in Direct Lake, you ideally queries go through the import mode side of Direct Lake, but they can also fall back to DirectQuery if they hit certain guardrails. And so these guardrails are documented on Microsoft's Direct Lake documentation. And so if you see here, each SKU has particular guardrails, which you want to make sure that your lakehouse tables do not hit. As I said, if they hit them, they could fall back to DirectQuery. So you can look at this table and you can wonder, do any of my tables actually hit these guardrails? And a lot of numbers here your eyes start to glaze over and you just don't know what to do. Well, we made it easy for you. So we have a function in semantic-link-labs called get lakehouse tables, which if you run it, let's just go back a bit, that was a little fast. If you run it and specify extend equals true, it will give you all of the tables in your lakehouse and their properties, and actually look up what the guardrails are for the skew for the capacity that your workspace is running in, match it with those guardrails from online documentation, and give you a simple true or false if you hit those guardrails. No math needed. It's just a simple, reduced to a simple true and false. So this just makes it really easy to have this information. If you see that one of your tables is showing as true, you can look for ways to optimize that table or find ways maybe to increase the capacity, what have you. But you know the information much faster than trying to do this manually. Now, I hope many of you are using the best practice analyzer in Tabular Editor. And if you're using that, you should continue to use it. You should just know that you also have another option to run those same rules that we published for Tabular Editor now here inside of a Fabric notebook. So you don't actually need to leave the Fabric ecosystem to check your model or potentially check multiple models at one time. As you can see here, we have the simple function for running the best practice analyzer against a semantic model, and you have all the violations, which are broken out by category here and summarized by how many violations that there are. And if you see here, any rule that's in blue, you can hover over it, and it will give you a tooltip showing more information about that particular rule. And if you click on that link, it'll take you to a website either by Microsoft or by one of our MPPs, which will give you even more context as to why that rule is important and why it should be followed. And one other, I guess, advantage of having this here is that inside the Fabric ecosystem, you have access to really everything in a programmatic fashion. And so we can check things here that you can't check outside of Fabric. For example, I have rules here now which check things like to check if a direct lake semantic model is using a view. And we know that if using a direct lake semantic model in using a view there, it'll fall back to DirectQuery, which we don't want. So if you do that by accident, and you can come here and run the rules, it'll actually warn you of that. That's not really possible to do on other platforms, but we can do it here because, as I said, in a notebook, you have access to really everything. So having this here, you just have more capabilities because of programmatic access to so many things in one place. So if you're developing semantic models and you're not using this, you're really missing out. So I want to highly encourage you to use this. And the rules that are run by default are the same rules plus additional rules, which we launched for Tabular Editor's Best Practice Analyzer. And if you want to include your own rules, as of today, we just released semantic-link-labs 0.6.0. The rules are formatted in a nice, clean way that leverages the Tabular object model, just like Tabular Editor. So you can easily create your own rules or modify existing rules to suit your particular needs. Now, again, if you're using developing semantic models, you've probably heard of Vertipaq Analyzer. A Vertipaq Analyzer can now also be viewed inside of a Fabric notebook. You don't need to leave the Fabric ecosystem to get this information. You have it right here at your fingertips. You can even export this information to a lakehouse table and save the information over time to see how things are going. You can also export it as a zip file, send to colleagues or to a consultant for them to analyze and re-import it back, seeing the same visualization as you see here now. One advantage, again, of this being done inside the Fabric ecosystem is that, as an example, for direct lake models, if you're going to try to get things like column cardinality or the missing rows for relationships, generally speaking, you run a DAX query. But if you do that for direct lake, you'll actually put all the columns in the model into memory, which defeats the purpose of direct lake. If you do Vertipaq Analyzer here, it queries the lakehouse using Spark instead. So no columns are put into memory, so you don't jeopardize the value of your direct lake semantic model and inadvertently put all the columns of your model into memory, potentially jeopardizing your capacity. You don't run that risk here. It's taken care of for you by the most efficient route, which is through the lakehouse directly. And again, if you're developing semantic models and you're not taking advantage of this tool, you are all out in a big way. So now let's talk about translations. So till this point, translations have been basically not done by anybody because they're too much of a pain. If you have users who speak different languages in your company and they want to use the semantic model or reports, it's very challenging because the model in the reports are generally in English, native language of the company, and other people, they suffer. Now it's extremely easy to make that problem go away. So all you have to do is you come in here to semantic-link-labs and you specify the name of the semantic model, the language you want to translate into, in this case, Italian and Chinese. And within a few seconds, the whole model is translated. All the tables, columns, measures, hierarchies, and levels are translated. And here we can see, just like that, we see the model in Italian, the report and the model, all the measures, all the tables, all the columns, all the hierarchies are translated to Italian. And we just have to come in here and specify the language equals ZH-CN will give us Chinese. And we can see the whole report in Chinese and the model as well, just like that. It's so easy. All you have to do is make sure that you have proper readable names for your tables, columns, measures, hierarchies, and levels, and then run this function, and you're done. That's it. Like, this has become a burden to being extremely, extremely easy. In my opinion, there's no reason why any semantic model that's used by people who speak different languages to be translated automatically into all those languages. And now let's get into some of the upcoming features. One in particular. So a lot of his attention has been given to the semantic model. If we look at Tom model, it offers tremendous opportunities for programmatic access to semantic models. However, regarding reports, this really has not been prioritized, and it's been quite challenging. this is all about to change. Thanks to the new PBIP and PBIR report format led by Rui Romano, it's enabling now to access report metadata for any Power BI report in a much easier fashion. So just like Tom provides you access to the semantic model metadata, now we'll be able to access the same for the report. And additionally, with this accessible report metadata, we can now implement functions for automating and programmatically modifying reports. Currently, all report modifications are done either in Power BI Desktop or in the web, and they're done by clicking, manually clicking endlessly. And sometimes for things which are really, really easy and simple, but just take a very long time to do, now those things are going to be done in a simple function for you automatically with no endless clicking. So let's give an example of some of these things. And we're not going to get into the automation functions just yet today. First, we're going to talk about the report metadata, because that's really where everything starts. So for those of you familiar with semantic link, we have functions for list tables, list columns, list measures, list hierarchies. There are list functions which give you all of the metadata for semantic models. Now we will have the same thing for reports. And you can do this for any report, which is using the new PBIP and PBIR format. So here, let's take a look at this particular report and see what custom visuals it has. We can see this report is using 2 custom visuals. And all this is output into data frames, so we can access it, have it accessed programmatically, and we can do things with it afterwards as well, and save it down. Here we have access to all the pages and all the relevant page properties for a particular model, for a particular report. And we even have things like how many visuals on the page, how many data visuals on the page, how many visuals are actually visible, and how many page filters we have on that particular page. Now let's see a list of all the visuals that we have in this report. And it shows the visuals, it shows their page, it shows the type of visual, and actually it also shows the display type, which is the more friendly type that we're used to seeing in Power BI Desktop and in the web. And like an endless array of properties that are associated with those particular visuals. We can also see all of the objects. And by objects, I mean measures, columns, or hierarchies, which are used in any of those visuals. So here we can see in a particular visual, the currency alternate key column is used, then it comes from the dim currency table in this particular visual on this particular page. And we know whether it's an implicit measure or not, whether it's used as a spark line, or whether it's used as a visual calculation. We can see all of the filters, whether they're report filters, whether they're page filters, whether they're visual filters. We can see all those. And again, all the objects which are used in those filters. You're filtering on a particular column, filtering a particular measure. It's all available here. We can even see visual interactions. all the modified visual interactions for a particular report will show here. And these visual names can again be mapped to the list visuals, so we can see which particular visual that is. We can see all the bookmarks as well, and all the visuals used in each bookmark. We can even see a list of all of the objects from the semantic model which were used in that particular report. As an example, this currency name column was used as a report filter in the report, or this color column from the dim product table was used as a visual filter on this particular page. And we can also see all the report level measures for the particular report. And with this kind of information, we can now take actions to do things about these particular, with this particular metadata. As an example, comes up a lot. Hey, I have all these report level measures. I want to put them into my semantic model. Guess what? We'll have a function which actually does exactly that. It looks and finds all these report level measures, identifies the semantic model that this report comes from, and uses the tabular object model, the component of semantic-link-labs, to migrate those measures to the semantic model, and then remove them from here, from the report. All done for you, wrapped in a single function. That's like one example, but there are many they're working on to do these previously extremely cumbersome tasks for you in an instant. And so that's what I want to show today. We'll take questions with the time remaining.
Mind blown. Awesome, Michael. We were just commenting in the chat. It's blowing up. This is like an admin's dream come true with all the cool stuff that you've built into this. Really awesome. Thank you so much for giving us the sneak peek. I won't ask you the typical question, when will this become available? The sooner the better.
Yeah, we're working on it. Want to make it, want to do things one time the right way. So, but it's looking pretty good right now. We're getting
Awesome.
closer. So, yep.
Okay, good. Okay, so we'll get with the questions. So the question from Diego is, after everything is migrated, you can update the tables with notebooks and disable the data flows. Is that how you would do it, or how would you operationalize it?
After you migrate to Direct Lake semantic model, if you get to 100% migrated, then you can remove the import or DirectQuery semantic model. Data Flows Gen 2 will contain the Power Query logic that you have. If you want to keep it there, you can. If you want to then migrate that to Spark or something else, you can do that too. But the Direct Lake semantic model will function for you. It out of the gate, it does a refresh. So as you saw, I was able to open it up in the web modeling, and you can do additional changes there. You don't have to, just because we made changes programmatically, doesn't mean you can't make them through the web interface as done normally. Afterwards, you totally can. So it's just back to business as usual. Only you have a direct like semantic model.
Okay, perfect. I think you answered this question from Ramesh. What is the best way to add a custom rule for BPA using notebooks?
Yeah, so let me show you here. So here I have semantic link labs, and if you come in here, we can see now that we have, these are split out into two file. So if we look at the model BPA, we can see that this takes a parameter called rules, which is a data frame. And it's optional because you don't specify it, you use the default rules. And if you want to specify it, when you call that function, you can come in here to the model BPA rules, and you just need to essentially replicate the code down from here and modify or change any of these particular rules. So this is one rule, and this contains, it says this is the category, this is the object type, this is whether it's a warning, error, or the severity level. This is the rule name, this is the logic, and this is the rule description. And some of them also have a URL. So you can come in here, add your own rules. This is just basically using Tom. So it's using Tom based on regular Tom, plus the now 100 functions that we've added to the Tom wrapper for semantic-link-labs. So if you want to get familiar with that, then come back to the notebooks. And here we have 4 notebooks for you to get started. The migration to Direct Lake is here. That's the one that we went over today. And with regard to Tom, you have this notebook, which you can import into your Fabric workspace, which helps you to get started with knowing some of the functions inside of Tom here in semantic-link-labs. And additionally, you should go to the documentation, which is here. Do not forget this. You can come in here and you can see the different packages, and you can see inside of the Tom package, these are all of the functions. So as an example, we can go to this function add relationship, and we see all the parameters that it takes and its full documentation as far as how to use it. And
Awesome.
between this and the notebook, you should have enough to get you started.
And then this is open source, right? So if there are contributors to this, you're open to that, and that this can create a PR and contribute to this.
If you want to contribute, you can, you're welcome to fork it and create a PR, or you can, you can contact me. Either you can also create an issue if you have a feature request. We're happy to have, community contributions. As you can see, this is an open source project. So we'd welcome that.
Awesome. Question from Chue that based on I guess the question is, can you make automated changes as well to the reports? If you detect something, can you make the changes, or is it read only?
So the functions I showed today are read only, but as I mentioned, I'm working on functions which are read write. And right now they will be specific functions doing specific things, not very specific functions to target specific scenarios. So there's no general function like build me a report based on blah, blah, blah. That's not in the scope right now. It's just targeting specific scenarios, which are kind of low-hanging fruit, which impact, I think, a lot of people. And that's the goal for now. So.
Okay, and I think
if you have ideas, feel free to share. Create an issue with that feedback. You can, come here, request a feature, and share that feedback. Be happy to take any ideas. So.
And having collaborated with Michael, he takes these requests very seriously, I know.
And I will say, Sandeep, I've learned a ton from you, and your feedback has been tremendous and has contributed greatly to Semantic Link and semantic-link-labs.
Thank you. One last question here is, Ramesh asks, can we automatically validate or check if a particular visual has rendering errors?
So that's actually you mean generally speaking that maybe it has a it's referencing a measure or a column or
Yeah, something is
that's not actually in
broken.
the model. So
Correct.
yeah, so that's going to be solved very soon. So I'm actually working on it as we speak. So if we uh, if we see here, this function shows you all of the objects which are used in the report, in this report, um, from a particular semantic model. So this, there are a few steps to get what you're talking about. We just need to take this list and compare it to the objects in the semantic model and see any of these ones here, do they not exist in the actual semantic model? And that's really easy. So the tough part was getting this. Now that we have this, uh, we can quite easily find that out. And I'm actually going to extend this function to have a parameter which will do that check for you. It'll look through this list and check the semantic model that this this report depends on, see if those objects exist in the semantic model, and if they don't, flag it. And that way you can just check to see in that column, like if it's a valid object or not. If any that are false, that report's broken in that particular place. Like this particular visual filter is using a column that doesn't exist in the semantic model. So this will be solved very soon. And I think it'll help a lot of people. Doing this manually is a complete pain. And so, yeah, it's going to be, I think, quite helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's a very good question.
Yep. Perfect. Well, I think that's the end of the questions. Again, thank you so very much, Michael. And thank you to everyone who participated. We had so many amazing questions here. And thank you, Michael, for taking the time, really. And we really, really appreciate it. And we really hope that you can join us in the future. Once you have included all the report level information, I think it warrants its own separate session in the future, because based on the requirement or based on the excitement here, I know the community is going to benefit significantly from it. So thank you again very much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, this is great. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Sandeep, for taking care of the questions. Yeah, just quickly, so we have a upcoming event on August 22nd. It's not published yet, but Joey will be joining us again from Microsoft. We'll be talking about One Lake and Microsoft Fabric, so stay tuned. But yeah, date is finalized. It is on August 22nd at 6 p.m. Pacific time, finally, Vancouver time. So that's what's going to happen. And as I mentioned, I just shared the link on the
Yep,
chat
and
as
this
well.
event, yeah, so this event with Zoe, just to add some color to this, you will not want to miss this. So at FabCon, Perv and I, we were there at FabCon in Las Vegas last year. Was it last year or this year? I
This year
forgot.
in April.
This year. Okay, there you go. Yeah, yeah, this year. And Zoe presented a session on the future of what the future of semantic models, one lake integration, and direct lake, and all of that looks like. And I don't think it has been discussed publicly or has been presented publicly that what does that look like. And there are significant changes that are coming up. That's going to change the way we think about semantic models, the possibilities it offers, and so there is a ton of those things. So we reached out to Zoe that, hey, Zoe, would you be able to present that exact same session so that those who were not in Las Vegas can also learn about it? And she has graciously accepted our invitation. So she will be talking about all those nice and cool things that are coming up that you, as the enterprise developer, should know about. And it's not just directly related to Direct Lake. So it's Direct Lake and all the other semantic models in general in the Fabric ecosystem. So definitely come back and join us for that event.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So I shared the link about the feedback form. Very small, but I think some people already responded. I might probably give uh, half a few minutes, seconds here, and then Sandeep, I have to run that your notebook thing to make it work to find the um, the winners, or right?
Yes, yes. So we will see Fabric in in action here.
We'll see
So Perp,
Fabric.
do you want to go ahead and share your screen? I mean, there is nothing to hide here, I guess. We'll see if it works.
Yeah, okay. I think we got just only 11 people. I was wondering if there are more people like this. 32 right now. I guess some already left. I know it went a little bit longer, but I was wondering if others will respond as well before I do this thing. But let me get doing. I think you want me to copy a few files here and there before I start, right?
Yep. Yeah. Just copy the Excel file.
Yeah. Maybe I show what I'm doing here is just to show
Exactly.
the
You can stop
overall.
sharing,
Yeah.
or rather recording rather.
Okay, yeah, that's good idea. Hang on a second. Where is it? Let me stop recording. Okay, perfect.